Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the history of a very select genre, symphonic poems for piano and orchestra, of which there are actually quite a few, most of them by composers who are French, because the genre is related to the concertante symphony, of which the French were specialists throughout the 18th century and into the 19th. I've got 9 examples here from the classical period to the modern period, and quite an amazing assortment of music this turns out to be. I had a very good time putting this list together. There are plenty more that I'm going to mention here. And if you have favorites that I don't talk about, feel free to let me know what they are. Maybe we'll get a chance to listen to one of them, or I can do a sequel. Who knows? But let me get myself organized here, and let's just jump right in. The first tone poem for piano and orchestra, one of the very first, absolutely had to be, Weber's Konzertstück in F minor for piano and orchestra. This is actually a lovely performance with Benjamin Frith and the RTE Sinfonietta on Naxos. Weber's piece is a genuine symphonic poem. It has a bunch of movements, but it is completely programmatic. Weber actually provided the story behind the music. The story is appropriately simplistic because it's really a piano concerto, so it only accepts a certain limited amount of story. The story is that the chatelaine is waiting for her knight in shining armor who is off at war. She feels horrible things must be happening to him. Her imagination runs wild at the horrible things that befall him. She passes out in horror. Suddenly, in the distance, she hears the trumpets of battle. The troops are returning home, and guess who's with them? Her boyfriend. Yes! She jumps to her feet, and in a rapturous finale, the two of them make virtuoso brilliance out of the keyboard writing. That is Weber's Konzertstück, and it's really just a delicious piece. It almost never gets played anymore. Alfred Brendel made something of a specialty of it, but the reason it doesn't get played anymore is because, well, it's only 16 minutes and 43 seconds long in this performance, which is about average. It's a little short for a concerto, and that's one of the things that you'll notice about some of these pieces. They belong to that genre, which I already did a video about, of short works for piano and orchestra that were done in the 19th century. They did tons and tons and tons of them because, piano virtuosi wrote their own music, and they did very, very highly varied concerts. They would have a singer, they would have a bit for orchestra, a thing, a that, and there was room to do all these little short pieces that no one plays anymore. And it's a tragedy, as I said in that video, because there's some marvelous, marvelous music, and we're going to see some more of it. So there's one. Next, we're going to jump up a bit, This is a piece of music that I did in my orchestra back in the days when I was doing repertoire. It's the Dandy Symphony on a French Mountain Air. Oh, what a beautiful work this was. It used to be a repertory staple. Again, it was one. This recording is with Charles Munch, and I believe the soloist is Nicole Henry, what's her name? Schweitzer. Yes, something like that. Where is it? Symphony on a French Mountain Air, conductor. Yes, Nicole Henriette Schweitzer. Piano. This is just lovely. It's a wonderful, wonderful tone poem for piano and orchestra in 3 movements, which is why Dandy sort of calls it a symphony, even though it's structured like a concerto. The tune is lovely. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Yam-bum-ba-da-da-bum. That's the tune. It wasn't too bad either, actually, considering that I have a cold. But But it's an absolutely delightful work, funny in the finale. The reason it doesn't get performed that much nowadays is that it doesn't give the soloist the kind of solo billing that they're looking for, and it's very difficult to play. Very, very difficult to play. We had a hard time finding a soloist willing to take it on in my little community orchestra. We started with this hotshot Russian guy at the Manhattan School of Music who really poo-pooed it because it wasn't Russian and it wasn't a concerto. And then we realized a couple weeks before the premiere of the first concert that he couldn't play it. He couldn't learn it. Yeah. So we had to get a emergency substitute who turned out to be the absolutely marvelous, and I have no hesitation naming her, Sylvia Kahan, who is a wonderful scholar of French music and who runs the Graduate Center in Musicology at City University of New York on Staten Island. And she learned it and played it beautifully. It was wonderful. So the Dandy Symphony on a French Mountain Air, it so deserves to be like back in the repertoire. Don't hold your breath. Next, staying in France and getting a little shorter, Africa by Saint-Saëns. This is a fabulous performance. This is with Louis Lortie and the Bergen Philharmonic under Nimi Järvi. Africa is just like this 9-minute little tone poem about Africa. It's very exotic and luscious. It's North Africa, by the way, because Saint-Saëns used to hang out in like Algeria and in Egypt. You know, he wrote the Egyptian Concerto, his fifth piano concerto, and it's fused with those exotic, vaguely quasi-oriental style melodies, you know, like the Bacchanal from Samson and Delilah, that kind of stuff, that wonderful 19th century imperialist brand of exoticism, which we just all love. It's a delicious piece, and you don't ever hear it in concert because it's only 9 minutes long, and no one's ever going to do it, and it just bites. It bites the biggie that no one does it. But I'll tell you, you could make a concerto program by taking a few of these pieces and sticking them together. There's actually another piece by Saint-Saëns, the Rhapsody d'Auvergne, which is another little tone poem for piano and orchestra that you could put with it, and it would make a lovely coupling with César Franck, Les Djinns, his version of a sort of Arabian Nights exotic kind of piece for piano and orchestra, a tone poem for piano and orchestra. This performance is with André Clouton. I'm pronouncing it however I feel like it today. And the Belgian National Orchestra with Aldo Ciccolini at the piano. These are the 4 César Franck tone poems. Believe it or not, he wrote 4. You know, there's the Chansons Maudites, Les Éolides, the winds, you know, the breeze people, and Redemption, Redemption, and Les Djinns for piano and orchestra. An absolutely delicious little piece. I play it every so often. It's one of those works you put it on and you listen to it, you go, gee, why don't we ever hear it? Why don't I play it more often? It's just marvelous. A lovely, lovely piece. Goes very well with the Saint-Saëns thing here, and probably much else besides. Then the sequel to the Franck, because these pieces are all kind of related. And we've just been talking about this composer, Gabriel Pierné, his poem Symphonique in D minor for piano and orchestra. 13 minutes, clearly descendant from Franck's, possibly the symphonic variations for piano and orchestra, and also from Franck's Les Djinns. You know, Pierné was a student of Franck. And this is an absolutely lovely performance with the complete Pierné music for piano and orchestra. One of you mentioned also the piano concerto in C minor by Pierné, which is marvelous, absolutely marvelous. But we're talking about symphonic poems, and this piece is called Symphonic Poem. It doesn't get more clear than that. It's about 13 minutes long. It's a rather dark and brooding piece with a triumphant ending. And in this performance, we have Stephen Coombs with the BBC Scottish Orchestra under Ronald Corp. A wonderful disc is part of that amazing romantic piano concerto series on Hyperion. Someday they're going to issue a box, and it's going to have 200 CDs in it. It's going to be an unbelievable box of stuff. But Pierre Ney is another one of those composers who, as I mentioned in the little talk we did for miniature masterpieces, he really should be better known. He was a fantastic composer and a wonderful conductor. Like I said, he was kind of the Mahler of France in that he balanced his career as composer and conductor and wrote top quality music, fantastically scored. So this is definitely something you should listen to. Then here's one. This is a warhorse, an absolute warhorse, but it's worth including in this bunch of stuff because it gives it a certain context, I think, which is quite helpful. Falla, Nights in the Gardens of Spain. I adore Nights in the Gardens of Spain. It is one of the most poetic, evocative, haunting pieces in the entire repertoire for piano and orchestra. It's glorious, and now we're into the early 20th century. It's not a piece, again, that you tend to hear very often unless Alicia de la Rocha was around, because she made people do it. People did it just for her. And most of the times that I've seen it performed have been with her over the decades, or they were with her anyway. But this is a very different performance that you probably haven't heard. It's superb. Absolutely superb. It's a wonderful disc, actually. This is with Margaret Weber and the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra under Raphael Kubelik. And it's coupled with Martineau's Fifth Piano Concerto, the Fantasia Concertante, which is also wonderful, and some other pieces, Cherepnin's 10 Bagatelles for Piano and Orchestra, and Weber's Konzertstück. Yes, you see? They put it all together because they got the concept. And those last two, with Ferenc Fricsay and the Berlin Radio Symphony Orchestra. This is an eloquent DG Galleria reissue. But it seems to be around. And of course, the Falla is in the big Kubelik box, and the other stuff is in the Fricsay box. So you can find these. So far, no one's done a Margaret Weber box, but she was a very, very fine pianist. She commissioned Stravinsky's movements for piano and orchestra. Her husband was a wealthy industrialist who could afford to pay people to write stuff for her. But she was not just a rich lady with a sugar daddy. She could really play. And this is a wonderful performance of Nights in the Gardens of Spain from a source that you might not expect. Next, we're getting towards the end. However, I want to play a sample of this next one because here's a piece virtually nobody knows, and it's really beautiful. It's Arnold Bax's Winter Legends. Now, this is kind of like a piano concerto. It's in 3 movements with an epilogue. It has exactly the same structure as one of the symphonies. It's a big symphonic work. It's like 40 minutes. It's a big, long piece. But it's like all of Bax's music, whether it's called a symphony, it has an abstract title or not, it's a tone poem. It has obvious programmatic, Celtic twilight, legendary, whatever you want to call it. It's got something behind it. Something clearly behind it. And I'm going to play you the opening of the finale. And you'll hear exactly what I mean, because if anything sounds legendary, this is it. So this is the performance with James Judd and the Bournemouth Symphony on Naxos, with the excellent Ashley Wass as the pianist. And it's really, really, really good. So here it is, the finale of Bax's Winter Legends. wasn't that special. And you don't have to go to the planet Baxia to hear it, with all the crazy Baxians living there. No, no, no. You can simply purchase the Naxos disc or download it and listen to it in the privacy of your very own listening space. A glorious tone poem for piano and orchestra. Next, we're at number 8. Scriabin, Prometheus. Remember that? It's another reason I wanted to put this into this general category of tone poems for piano and orchestra, because Scriabin is like so weird and so Scriabin-esque that people tend to treat him as a world unto himself, as if like the whole outer realm of music didn't exist where Scriabin was concerned. But that's not true. Prometheus, the poem of feu, the poem of fire, is actually a tone poem for piano and orchestra that fits beautifully within the context of these other tone poems for piano and orchestra. And here it's played to a fare thee well by Claudio Abbado with Martha Argerich on the piano at the Berlin Philharmonic on this disc devoted to the theme of Prometheus. You get Beethoven's The Creatures of Prometheus, you get Liszt's symphonic poem Prometheus, then you get Scriabin, and then finally Luigi Nono's excerpts from Prometheus. Prometheus. That's quite a Prometheized selection of stuff. But the Scriabin is the featured work here, and the one that I want you to keep in mind. It would be interesting to go listen to it sort of after hearing some of these things, to fit it into its context and not treat it as something from another world. The planet Scriabia, perhaps. Who knows? Just as we have the planet Baxia for Bax's pieces. No, it's wonderful. Scriabin's Prometheus. And last but not least, this is something probably most people don't think about when they think tone poems for piano and orchestra, but it is one. It's Messiaen, Oiseaux Exotiques, exotic birds, for piano and an orchestra of winds and percussion. Lots of percussion. Ooh, baby. Oh, it's so much fun. It's a delicious little work. Yeah, it's like 20 minutes long? It's not that long, actually. Let me see if I can tell you how long it is. 15 minutes and a bit. And it has a whole slew of birdsong and a whole slew of Hindu and Greek rhythms and things underpinning them. And it sounds like all of Messiaen's bird music. You know, it goes, wait, wugga, 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 crash, you know, it sounds like that, only more so. And the fascinating thing about Messiaen is just how literal he is in transcribing all of these bird calls and the way he pastes everything together. It's rather amazing because he creates music out of this stuff which is, well, he's kind of like working with Legos. He just sort of fits it all together and it cheeps and freeps and bleeps away. And it is a splendid, splendid modern tone poem for piano and orchestra, if you like that sort of thing. If you like Messiaen, if you like his bird stuff, I love it personally. I think it's marvelous. I think he was a genuine, original, creative genius, and an uncompromising one. And you love it or leave it. But I love it, and I think that makes a perfect contemporary conclusion to this little talk on symphonic poems for piano and orchestra, a delicious niche from the repertoire. And I just wanted to give you the list and turn you loose to go and explore all of this music on your own and talk to me about some of the other pieces that you think fit into that marvelous little category. So thank you for joining me, friends. Keep on listening. Take care.